Hi everyone, I'm Matt and welcome back to Toylytics, where we take a look at the analytical side of toy collecting. In this video, we're going to look at the Mythic Legions Covenant of Shadow wave of figures and how they've been performing on the secondary market as of the end of the second quarter in 2024. So an interesting wave here, getting a little bit harder to find in a lot of cases, but maybe not in some cases, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. So let's take a look at the wave overall. You can see that the pre-order period here was a long time ago in June 2016, and this pre-order was alongside the All-Stars 1 wave. If you can believe it, we are at All-Stars 6 and beyond at this point, so definitely a long time ago for these figures. So looking at them, you can see there that some of them have been re-released, and obviously that has a role to play in how their prices are changing. So let's take a look at the data itself, and you can see that overall we have a high number of sales here in quarter 2 2024 compared to the past, although a lot of that was driven by Kador himself. You can see that beforehand only 8 figures sold in any other quarter from quarter 2 to quarter 3 2023 to quarter 1 2024. That 9-month period, there were only 8 sales on US eBay overall, and then we had 22 sales in quarter 2. Why is that? Well, that was of course one that was part of the Mysteries of Mythos re-releases, and a lot more became available on the market, and obviously that had a pretty significant effect on the number of sales as well as the prices we will see in a few minutes. I'm going to have another video later on covering the Mysteries of Mythos figures overall, those re-releases, in a lot more detail, and Kador will be in there too. So looking at the rest of these, though, you can see that in general we have a pretty stable set of sales overall. I would say the Silverhorn Sentry came down in 2024 compared with 2023, although that fourth quarter of 2023 was largely because of the Reinforcements 2 re-release of the Silverhorn Sentry. But in general, I think these are holding pretty stable overall. Not quite as many Templar Knights sold as in past quarters, but again, still pretty high. Looking at the figures per month, you can see here that in the second quarter especially, the number 1 was Kador selling, not surprising, and then the Templar Knight. But in general, you can see that a lot of these figures are often selling between about 4 and 8 or 9 copies for the most part on a monthly basis. Looking at the average prices here, the average prices are the gray bars. The minimum price in the quarter was the blue dot, and the orange dot represents the highest price that they sold for. And again, this is just in quarter 2 2024. This is the original Knight Builder at the highest price, not surprising. That will hopefully and probably come down with the announcement at the end of May of the upcoming Knight Builder 3 that's in the Ashes of Agbendor wave. Okay? But in general, selling for $247.5 on average. You can see a high price of $325. That looks like a really significant overpay at this point, and then low price of $121. And we'll see that the price has come down at least in June after that announcement. Here's Kador. Again, his price has come down significantly. We'll look at that as well, but you can see on average still selling for $112.30 over quarter 2. Templar Knight selling for about $80. Baron Volgar, this is the original Baron Volgar, selling for close to $80. Okay, so not Baron Volgar 2, but the original one that has kind of that secondary knight look as well. Torion selling for above $70 on average. Gorthok selling for above $70 on average as well, $72. And the Silverhorn Sentry selling for $68. Scaphoid bringing up the rear, so to speak, with $52, largely because of that All-Stars 4 release. But as you can see, still above retail, so he's getting a little bit harder to find at this point as well. Looking at these changes in prices by quarter, you can see Baron Volgar here is at his highest price in the past year right now. Kador, on the other hand, is at his lowest price. Again, not surprising with so many that have been now available for sale. Gorthok come down significantly in advance of his All-Star 6 release. You can see the Knight average is somewhere in the middle, although, after the announcement of the Ashes of Agbendor wave coming down, probably in quarter 3 and 4, we'll see him come down significantly. Scaphoid is right around where he has been for the past year. Silverhorn Sentry, basically a little bit higher than at any point after the re-release, but somebody paid around $500 for one in quarter 3, so that really skews those results there. But looking at the ones after the re-release, he's still at the highest price because a little bit harder to find at this point because the re-releases have kind of dried up. Templar Knight selling again at its lowest, but basically just about the same averages he has been selling for. And Torion, again, same thing, came down a little bit, right? So he was selling a little bit higher back in quarter 3 2023, and he's kind of drops pretty consistently, but still selling for well above retail. Let's look at the individual sales themselves. And I have the wrong thing clicked there. Hold on. There we go. Now we're back to Covenant of Shadows. Okay. I had the convention exclusive filter clicked there. All right, for a sec. Baron Volgar, here we go. Overall, you can see that he's not selling at close to retail anymore very often, right? So right here, back in March, before the second quarter, he sold for 50 loose, but the lowest price beyond that is above 60. So generally, in quarter 2, he was selling for 60 to about, I would say in general, about 83. So $60 to $80 or so is the price that he seems to be going for now. So if you see him for 65 or less, probably a pretty good price on the Baron Volgar 1, especially if you want to do a little army building. All right, Khador, you can see that back before the re-release in late April with the Mysteries of Mythos, very few sales overall, but you can see the price dropping pretty significantly in May and June as a result of all of those coming on the market. So you can see that right when the re-release was announced, maybe some people didn't know, he was selling for around $150, but now more recently in June especially, he's been selling for, you can see a loose one here selling for $67.50, really good deal compared to where he was going, but in general selling for, I would say, about $85 to $100 more recently. Gorthok. What's surprising about Gorthok is just how few sales overall. Like, look at this. Over the past year, so few Gorthoks have sold overall. I think if you count these, it's like just 6 data points over the past year on eBay of Gorthok selling, which really is surprising. So it's hard to say anything about averages. You can see that we did have some sales in quarter 2, and one new one sold for 110. We had a used one here sell for 60, and a used one here sell for 46. So again, the average was 72 as we saw, but really hard to say. I think unless you see one for close to retail at this point, just wait for the All-Star 6 release, in my opinion. All right, this is the Night Builder, and you can see that the Ashes Vagbender wave was announced right at the end of May. So looking at June, you can see here that we had one sell for 260, one sell for 298. Not really sure why people paid for used ones at that point, but you can see here that the price came down pretty significantly later on in June. So here's one for 170 and one for 120. So I'm guessing that moving forward, the price is probably going to settle before the wave is released itself and available, somewhere around that 130 to 150 range. But we will see, right? Hopefully some more data points become available as more and more of these sell in advance of the re-release. Or maybe not re-release, but the new release, let's say the updated release of the Night Builder. All right, looking at Scaphoid, you can see that again, pretty stable overall, although you can see that at the high end, other than this one out here that seems to be an outlier, at the high end, the high price, nobody's really needing to pay more than $60 for him, but also nobody's getting him for much less than about 45. So he's going for generally about 45 to 60. So if you see him for right around retail, that's probably still a pretty good price for a Scaphoid. Maybe even a little bit less if you can luck out. Grab one. Silverhorn Sentry, again, like there's that big sale there, September 30th for $500. But other than that, you can see that it's overall been pretty stable. Although looking at the second quarter, you can see that the lowest prices were right around retail, what a retail single figure would be, because these were just available from the Horsemen. So retail's really like $37. That's really what you were able to get him for, maybe 40 at a show. But he wasn't available at other third-party retailers at that $50 price. But in general, if you think about $50 prices being the barometer for a single figure, he was selling for just below that at his lowest, and on the high end up to about 100, right? So I would say between 50 and 100, but in general, people have been able to get him for around like $65 to $70 for the most part. Although more recently, you can see here we had a low price, but here we had some 80 and 100. So he may be getting harder to find in that $60 to $70 range. Templar Knight. Again, in general, it seems like the average is increasing overall, or at least the highest prices are increasing overall. Some people are paying over $100 for them. Again, we're going to get a lot of Templar-like knights in Necronominus and All-Star 6, so kind of recommend to people to wait at that point. But if you need one now, some people were able to get them for in that $55 to $60 range. But for the most part, I would say that most of these sales are around $70 to about $100 more recently in Q2. In my opinion, though, if you can, just wait for those releases of Sir Elijah, Sir Enoch, etc. And then Torian, as we said, overall, it seems like he's dropping in price, although kind of stable. Right? Still not getting down to that $50 retail, but kind of settling in the $70 to $85 range. So, it's possible that you could see a Torian for right around 70 or a little bit less. And if you want one, that seems to be a pretty good price at this point. So interesting dynamics here with the Covenant of Shadow wave. Some increasing, some staying the same, some decreasing significantly due to re-releases and updates. It'll be something to look at in the future as we keep an eye on how these prices change. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you again in the next one.